Hi, my friends and family, and welcome back if you haven't been here before. This is Trey's Timeless Now, and today I'm going to ask you a very simple question. I'm going to give you a very simple question to dispel Archontic, hegemony, and your porous mind. Because it's your birthright if you have the courage to reclaim what is yours. That's right, your mind. A very simple question to dispel Archontic hegemony and your porous mind. Well, I just finished this wonderful book. I only read 10 pages a day because I wanted to really let it sink in. I'm going to use it as a reference, and since he said strict written permission is required, I'm not going to quote from it, but I was watching the Journey to Truth podcast on Rumble today, and they interviewed a man named Bradley Loves. A good part of the interview was about what I've delved into, what I'm delving into here that I've spoken about in hundreds of videos. I consider myself one of these half dozen antipsychotic teachers out there. You know, I am a human antipsychotic in some of these videos, so in the sense of bringing you awareness of the truth about this subject, which is ironic, right? So a good part of the interview with this man, he calls himself Bradley Loves, was about the voices in the head. The voices that I claim are not you. And so, and he gently passed over, he gently posed the obvious answer to this massive issue. If you were willing to admit, you know, this is the hardest part for a lot of, especially conservative people or people stuck in their ways, egocentric people. If you were willing to admit that our minds are porous, as the title of this book states, for me it is unequivocally, obviously true. And, you know, I can almost feel like, you know, the mutable zodiac signs, or the people who are naturally, ironically enough, my local wannabe controller claims that it's a horribly dangerous and bad thing to have a porous mind, but, you know, or be open to suggestion and change of your opinion. But it's actually the nature of the real original human being. So, and so if you were willing to admit that our minds are porous, you got, you know, then you ask yourself this one question. He got into the history of the technology, all the way up to the CIA's usage of such overtly evil modern versions as what is called voice to skull technology, and how we are aware that our minds are like the radio sets, and how the CIA, you know, working with me here, allows some of us to speak about psychic powers, and because it's the truth. If you do the research, I mean, they've done all these studies to prove it. So, and then, you know, tried to, you know, Mockingbird, it's nefarious and infamous for, you know, the dark, but, you know, we're coming into the era of awareness now where we can speak about all that openly, so it's declassified. So as I've said, well, you know, if there was transparency and things that pretend to control or think they control it all, then, you know, maybe they would have a future. As I've said many times, all of those streams of violent or disrespectful thoughts when you're having a hard time. I mean, again, this is the modern human condition. This is probably everyone, I'm guessing. I'm not certain, but you know, the master meditators, the really fully enlightened souls, maybe not them, but you know, because they don't believe the bullshit at all. So when you're having a hard time, these stream of violent thoughts are not really you. So how do you deal with it? If you know, if say you actually have the courage to admit this is the truth, how do you deal with it? You know, I was thinking about today about the fixed zodiac signs. I mean, maybe it's not a great idea to record this video at sunset, but Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius, because I'm going to be fighting off these little small vampires while I discuss the big ones. So the big invisible ones, the small physical ones. So, but you see, it's a mental thing. If I don't have the fear, if I'm not getting anxious or tense, even though I'm a delicious source of blood, I'm less appealing. So I was thinking about the fixed zodiac signs today, folks. Taurus, Leo, Aquarius. Fixed star signs, you know, fixed zodiac signs. And I wonder even if because the zodiac sign Leo is traditionally in August, and it's a fixed sign, and our soul, our sun, or our soul here is called Leo, right? Or Helios, right? So does that mean, I was trying to research it for this video and I couldn't find anyone to admit or call it that, but I believe our sun is a fixed star, right? So fixed signs, fixed zodiac signs can get stuck in their habits, stuck in their ways, or stuck in their heads. It could easily become my way or the highway. And it seems to me from experiential evidence, a lot of narcissism, or at worst, you know, they could get into NPE control, you know, and I'm gonna have to go inside. I'm getting a lot of vamps on me now. Oh. Or we'll just sit back and chill. So, at worst, NPE control can occur in these signs if the person isn't very clear. Doing a lot of meditation or psychedelics, they will really think the voices are them and even act on them. I think Jerry Marzinski proved it as well as anybody. As a psychologist, working in state mental institutions for 3 decades, he began to notice the voices in schizophrenics' minds. We're all saying the same violent, derogatory thing. They were all, just like right then, it was trying to make that fall. It's always about fall, you know. It would be the exact same thing we notice, right? So when he started to see this pattern, and interestingly enough, he's in a fixed zodiac sign, Aquarius, and he must have picked up some of the Archontic energy just enough to where he's so paranoid that if you go on jerrymarzinski.com, they give you a temporary password that lasts for a half hour. So he definitely probably got some kind of, you know, fear right there. He's afraid to let you have longer than, I don't think any mosquitoes came in here with me. Anyway, so first time I tried to do that at sunset, so it's kind of a silly idea. It's kind of a crazy idea. So maybe the Archons influenced me to do that. And so Jerry Marzinski proved it as well as anybody, as a psychologist working in state mental institutions for 3 decades. He began to notice the voices, and schizophrenic and psychopathic patients would always say the same derogatory commands. You know, also, I've done a lot of research the last few years in particular, but, you know, for the last 30 years about healing and awakening, shamanism and awareness. And, you know, I read his first book, but Pierre Sabac's works, I got to order his second book. But Pierre Sabak wrote 2 books about how what I call the Decepticons or the Archons, Lucifer and his people, Marduk, whatever you know, there's all kinds of names, the Anunnaki. It says in the Old Testament, I'll confound your tongue, right? They created the languages, you know, all these different nations and languages and kingships. And but Pierre Sabak wrote his first book at least is about how the reptilians, basically he saw David Icke's works and he got inspired to study how they created our languages or inserted their reptilian codes into our language. It's very fascinating work because he got really passionate about studying the etymology of how the reptilians got involved in the creation of language. So it really corroborated my feelings on all this stuff to read his book, so his first book. So I was just looking at on the same topic. That's why I put it there in my notes. Michael Sala's new interview with the former Christian minister or priest Paul Wallace talk about how the ETs established hegemonies, and so that's the reason why from him I glean that word for the title here, which of course I looked it up and it's a perfectly appropriate word for this. So he said that, you know, what he calls the Elohim, the ETs, the Anunnaki, they established hegemonies where in ancient times, also he said, I like this is very interesting, the beings, the gods, you know, the word, he often says the word Elohim is the plural, the gods, you know, were often called, in ancient times, were called the powerful ones. The powerful ones. That's what they called the people that a lot of you, or we've all been raised to think of as God in the ancient days, were called the powerful ones. And they lived in some castles in the sky. So it's probably where our concept of heaven comes from, right? So the 144,000 that get to, you know, be their servants or whatever. So one of the things Bradley Loves got into was how they had to get their beliefs and ideas into our head, of course, through wars and religions and trauma bonding and all that. But he mentioned that they knew, you know, that we're that we had to be dumbed down to not knowing that we're multidimensional, and how they were, you know, thought inserts and he mentioned I mentioned that he brought up voice to skull and all that. So, and how the different you know, he, like myself, he briefly delved into the different methodologies in that interview today that have been used over the years. And but it was through the Porous, what Bob Falconer calls the porosity of our minds, that the current haunted possession of ego control, people that hide and stay alone, stuck in their NPD or their depression, and you know, those are the ones I've suffered with. Ego control, and most humans occurred not just through forcing them to pay the rent, through forcing rent and taxes. That came later, you know, perhaps in the last 1,500 years. I just finished Robert Falconer's book. I just mentioned that already, The Others Within Us. And it corroborates all I've said on these videos, okay? Like it or not. This is the facts. This video is telling you the facts from my perspective, like it or not. You know, I've done a lot of research, okay? And his book really does a elegant and a very thorough job. I would say it's like 400. I left it outside with the skeeters. But it corroborates all I've said about this topic beautifully and thoroughly. Yeah, the only time I'm usually outside and of here at dusk is on a bicycle, going so fast that I'm not near the stagnant, putrid water of some of these, probably every single yard here. You've heard me rant about that. Well, I wasn't ranting about geoengineering because I wanted to. I was hoping I want South Carolina to organize. I want Charleston to organize, like, you know, and do what Tennessee and New Hampshire did and criminalize that shit, because it's just slowly, this neighborhood is going to go into the ocean in 3 years if they don't do that. So, and actually take some of these, take some of these planes and go after, make sure that they don't do the geoengineering, man, because otherwise they slated this town. And so that's why, lots of skeeters out there right now. So, but really, man, this got off topic, but it's funny though. I mean, that's the actual so-called crazy side of me there. So, the part that's not clear. So, the part of my brain that wasn't clear of Archonic deception, or I simply had slipped my mind that they were going to be there, because I'm too spoiled to be in it. So, but this book really, man, he really, he started in his 70s. He started exorcising people of these kind of entities in his 70s, and then wrote a book about it, and it really kind of blew my mind. Just because he's a psychologist with the courage to talk about these things that only us weirdo YouTubers usually talk about. So all I've said about this topic, he corroborated it beautifully and thoroughly. And I got to get his permission, then I'll start reading from it. The Wetiko, as indigenous folks and Paul Levy calls them, or the Archons, as I call them, and all the Gnostics, or false. Lisa Renee defines Archons as false kings of tyranny, which I think is a pretty good way of putting it. I mean, they don't belong here. That's why they have to hide. They really don't have any jurisdiction at all. The word jurisdiction even is one of their fucking contraptions, man. One of their semantic ideas, so that they made up. So, I mean, look at the slogans. Look at the slogans used in the last couple years. But they're just as talented as they are at creating disgustingly negative memes. They are horrible at covering their tracks on occasion, like the whole changing SAD thing. Honestly, the deception strategies have been just as masterfully and wonderfully well done as they were obviously and pathetically morally retarded and stupid. It's amazing that they can be so talented at harming us psychologically and so pathetically stupid when it comes to having any respect for us or them or anyone. It really amazes me, man. I mean, that's why I really do think that they're evil ETs, because they don't belong. They don't have love or heart or awareness. They don't care, but they'll steal it from you. So, that's why I say take back your mind. That's what this video is all about. So they really a lot of people say they kind of resemble very old and ugly grays. Like if a gray alien was like 7,000 years old and really butt ugly, that's what they look like. And I'm pretty sure, and perhaps long ago they established their hegemonies in our minds. Perhaps before the Anunnaki, they established the hegemonies in our minds to suck our energy and make us moral cowards and idiots if they could, just like them, make us really talented at making inventions that have no respect, and so, they successfully orchestrated the gradual and now increasing attempts to take over everything, as we saw so well 4 years ago. Could it be that the Columbine school shooters, being all on antidepressants, could it be that made a fully closed loop mental? I should probably be saying this kind of comment only in the room here with the door locked. Could it be that put them on a fully closed loop mental catalyst, perfectly orchestrated by these beings, perfectly obedient sleeper agents. You know, that actually all, you know, especially if they were on the farmies, but in this one incident, they were all on the farmies. So could it be that that was a perfect close, you know, made the perfect circuit for this to work perfectly, for them to be perfect sleeper agents for the Archons? The answer is pretty obvious. So facing the facts that this sickness was the gradually normalized, like they had to gradually mainstream Satanism, gradually bring about solipsism, gradually bring moral relativity. Well, not really gradually with that. They had to gradually hide that, but they still promote it. So, you know, so facing the facts that this sickness has been the gradually normalized modern human condition. What can you do about it? For many folks, the first step can be the hardest. Of course, that's admitting that this even exists. You know, they don't want to admit that this is, you know, this type of nightmare reality. This is why we have so much domestic violence and so many homicides. You know, this is a huge factor, if not the main number one reason, right? So, evil ETs can beam thoughts into perhaps all humans' heads, you know, not just psychotic schizophrenics. Ironically, of course, that is because the Illuminati media and dark side controlled academia has for centuries now, at least for 1 century and half a century or 50 years of inversion through the college system or university system of USA, they've openly inverted the reality of people's mindset for over 50 years now. At least one century they forced the academia to play by what they said it was, and they forced it for about 1 century. They forced every idiot intellectual they could to believe in what Robert Falconer calls the citadel of mind theory, the citadel of mind. That all those fucking belligerent, pathetically stupid ass thoughts, you made all those thoughts up. Every goddamn pathetic, stupid thing you've ever thought, that was you. You made all that up, and that's why you should take your drugs, go take your sedatives, or take whatever you take that we give you, and chill, because there's serious things wrong with you. No, there's serious things wrong with the human condition when people believe that it is violent, that it is those poisonous thoughts, that this what Robert Falconer calls the citadel of mind theory, in order to sell poisonous pharmaceuticals eventually, you know, and but to take control. It was one of the most important things around the turn of the 20th century, before they came up with Einstein had his E equals MC squared concept. They used that to factor in, okay, but it was they took the idea of ether out of the history books. And around the same time, and you know, that by that time they had burned enough witches and scared off enough shamans that they had convinced, and the invention of the Hollywood mainstream media, they convinced the majority of people that there is no such thing as multidimensional reality. There is no such thing as spirits or ghosts. You know, at a certain point in the last century, they convinced people of this shit filth level of multidimensional awareness, that you are this 3D flesh suit, and that's it. You are these evil, stupid thoughts, and that's it. It's like, no. It's really sad, man, that they actually, you know, in order to sell their poisons, they convince people of this shit, you know. So Big Farm actually lowered the human awareness, at least in their patient population, all the way to the atrocious Humans 2.0 experiment we see going on now. They had to convince most everyone that was willing to listen to their stupid ideas that unless you are some psychotic schizophrenic, you know, all of those thoughts in your head are yours. They all originated from you. See, of course you're going to want to go get hammered or buy the poisons if you really think all those thoughts are you, or not exaggerated at all. It's all just from you. Every single thought you've had all just originated from you. It's all your fault. That's right. That's what the big farm wants you to think. It's all your fault. Your citadel of mind. It's all that's in there. It is your responsibility, but it all originates from you. You know, you thought of all those nasty things that came in your head. You know, there's a reason why so many people meditate, and there's a reason why people that get really good at meditation don't have this problem very much. You see, because it is the number one way that humanity has figured out how to clear this deception out. Okay, is to step back. Because you see, when we're in moments of anxiety, when we're in moments of stress, that's when the Archons are like, we're going to get some food, man, if you're not aware. So evil spirits and ghosts don't even exist. That's what they convince people. It's like, oh my God, people are so gullible, man. Especially when somebody is forcing you to be their slave and run their wars and telling you they'll kill you if you don't do what they say, and there's no such thing as spirits. That makes it a little bit more pressurized. Been doing that for hundreds of years, of course. Evil spirits and ghosts don't exist, of course. First, they had to kill or burn all the shamans and witches, whether they were good or bad, you know, evil or good ones, because they were involved, whether they were evil or good, they were involved with healing or hurting others in the multidimensional realms, and that had to be hidden, right? So look at all the black magic that goes on these days, and it's all pseudo invisible and hidden, right? So or done in a secret place, right? So actually, they just wiped out most of the good witches, and the evil bad black magicians. You know, they just got organized and they formed into their covens, and still have their covens and their secret societies. And even in Santa Cruz Santa Cruz, California, Satanism is so mainstream that the Free Weekly had an article about how the Santa Cruz Satanic Temple is doing this thing called Save Our Shores, where they adopt a certain beach. They adopted Seabright Beach for 1 year and cleaned up all the trash off Seabright Beach for 1 year. So this Free Weekly, you know, it's all the publishers in the club, what George Carlin calls the club. So they made an article about how kind they were, you know. And so this is the kind of shit you see in the West Coast, man. You know, if one parent can get your child over state lines into California, you know, they can go to the MD and get, the other parent could be totally against it. They could get sex hormone blockers, and not even just by visiting California. That's how California is in the laws, you know. So they pretty much are just they're happy with letting the black witches take over a lot of parts of it. So sad. So the bad black magicians just formed into covens and secret societies, starting with the Brotherhood of the Snakes in Atlantis, all the way to forming, you know, more recently, in more recent centuries, governments, and then Hollywood. Hollywood is when they really mainstreamed it. Hollywood has really, you know, openly mainstreamed it since the turn of the 2000s. And with a lot of help from their evil masters, of course, you know. All these beings have lined all their pockets and lined them with, you know, luxury and all that they wanted to spread this hell on earth psychologically. Scientism and the Scientism death cult and the medical mafia probably had the most help, you know, leadership from these councils of Archons and, you know, Luciferian beings. So, but amongst Buddhist natives everywhere and other more realistic thinkers, people who have discernment to think about things as they really are and not just do what they're told out of fear of being killed or controlled or whatever, being tortured if they don't, or burned at the stake. like the Gnostics. Well, they burn down a whole town of people who talk about the things like in the way that I do. The Cathars were a village, a city of Gnostics. They burned down the whole thing. That's how much in history this was unallowed to speak the truth about this subject to the masses. So they could even though they did that, they could never wipe out the truth of our porous mind and spirit possession, to go back to the title of Robert Falconer's book. And Falconer has courageously brought the evidence in his book and the truth into, of how he is reducing suffering and healing people by using what's called internal family systems psychotherapy, this new form of psychotherapy called an IFS, by calling these spirits unattached burdens, and scientifically and spiritually exercising folks, utilizing IFS with gentleness. It amazes me, really, the way he describes his work, with fearlessness, and humility. You can see this is why it sucks so often to interact with normal humans, normies I call them, especially with humans 2.0 and all that. It just sucks unless you just don't take it, unless you can really practice the 4 agreements. I'm saying the part of me that's an empath, if I'm not super meditational, if I'm not being the super empath, if I'm not staying in respect, if I'm allowing the Archons to influence me, I just feel depressed or angry or sad when I interact with normies, But if I remember the Christ, I can often help them to remember it a little bit more. So that's the law of energy, the law of karma, what you put out. So what is the very obvious question to ask once you admit that this is the sad truth? What's this question that I've kind of been attempting to build some suspense into this video, so you keep you watching, even though it's obvious. What's the question? Is that thought really me? Is that thought from me? Is that my thought? The obvious thing, this came to me while I was taking a shower just a while ago. When I was getting that I'm depressed, or I'd like to kill myself, or whatever it was. And then I was like, bullshit. It still happens that I might even, being that I'm totally, through circumstance, through illness, and my circumstance, bought into the lie that I should spend this many years without a woman, without a hierogamic union, without a partner, that I'm unworthy. The unworthy thing, the Archons love unworthy, to make you feel any kind of anguish, but they love to promote, But again, I was like, fuck you, man, that's bullshit. I'm not thinking that. And so, cannabis helps, but you just have to learn how to not identify with it, really. It's you have to realize that this is, again, the hardest part and the most important part also is, or if with me, they can even convince me to forget about this, that's, again, I'm not saying they're not powerful. I've never said that. I said what I said is they're morally retarded, and they're only powerful if you're not aware. So they're only powerful amongst the unaware. They did a brilliant job of dumbing us down. Even just these fucking microwave cell phones have lowered the normal human IQ like 20 points. Just in the last 20 years of forcing them on almost everyone. Is that thought from me? Is that my thought? Or an Archon trying to turn me into a loose snack again? I've heard the Dalai Lama gets up at 3 a.m. going to bed at 7 to get enough proper rest. You know, he doesn't go without sleep. He gets 8 hours sleep, but he gets up at 3 a.m. and for 2 hours before all the other monks wake up, he does something that's called insight meditation. And I heard it's simply that he asks himself for 2 hours while sitting straight, you know, sitting with his spine straight, perhaps doing vipassana or deep breathing, to every single thought in his head from 3 to 5 a.m. Every single thought in his head. Is that true? Is that true? Is that true? And you see, when you do this at 3 or 4 a.m. and almost no one else is awake, it makes it the psychic. Oh, there's not all the archonic disturbance beaming into all the less advanced souls around you. So that's how the Dalai Lama gets really, really clear. Why he can, like I'm doing right here, he can have hundreds of CIA guys sometimes escorting him or trying to help him, protect him, so to speak, supposedly, and not be affected by it. Insight meditation. Now, and just like almost probably the majority of the things that I look up on Wikipedia or mainstream dictionaries to get the definition of that I talk about in these videos, for some reason I couldn't find a decent explanation anywhere else online on any of those sources about what insight meditation actually is. Like, you know, for some reason there's nothing on Wikipedia at all that says in a short paragraph or two what it is. I wonder why. So I'm going to read to you something right now that was written by, it said 0 followers, man, so I might have to follow this, be his first follower. It's weird, but a man named Bert Luchjenbroers, must be from another country perhaps. Bert Luchjenbroers. And this was originally published on meditationsecrets.org, and I picked it up from medium.com. And so discover meaning of life with insight meditation. Detachmental level insight meditation observation. Here I sit in silence, firstly becoming aware of the breathing. Just as sensations arise and pass away, thoughts are also permitted to arise and pass away. Anything not held onto will eventually pass away altogether. Vacillation of the mind is quieted down. This in turn will permit the mind to become sharper, more clearly and finely focused. Next, we become aware of the increasing soul energy flow, moving with the physical body into a straighter, more upright posture. What begins as a few sparks becomes a real flood of energy pouring down. When the alignment of your spine is just right, feel the switch on with the Bungarelli experience, which is the mini enlightenment experience. After many meditations with many Bungarelli experiences, then one day you may find yourself in a very different place, experiencing the complete disillusion with enlightenment. Insight meditation is a dissolving meditation. Once you gain the skill for continuous meditation, which is to continually hold your awareness within the soul energy flow, your future will be completely assured. while you maintain continuous practice? Do you have the dull mind of average humanity? Or are you one of the chosen ones who has the ability to escape the illusion, like the Archontic deceptions, the fake stream of fake-ass violent thoughts? Why not find out for yourself? Therefore, begin practicing insight meditation today to discover the meaning of life, which is a process of becoming enlightened. Spiritual wisdom energy state, psychic insights, balanced first three rays. In a totally balanced human being, it is the active intelligence, which directs the energy being expressed through the first two rays or aspects. Very simply put, when movement or a kick is required, we use first ray energy. Conversely, when a pat on the back or reward for well done is required, second ray love wisdom energy is indicated. Whether we use first or second ray energy in any given circumstance, it is important to realize that both are love and action when correctly applied. There is no reason why we cannot adopt the love-wisdom orientation in the resulting state where nothing in particular is indicated. Above all, children in particular will respond to this by building in self-esteem and self-confidence. Secrets of insight meditation. As above, so below reveals spiritual states. As above, so below is a very old and ancient esoteric expression. While a person lives a denial of personal responsibility, then the use of will and power becomes necessary. And the love, wisdom, in tune with the active intelligence, which then determines a sledgehammer or a tinny hammer, is required to restore greater balance. Above all, learn with insight meditation practice and spiritual science study. You'll learn the principle to be as above, so below. So, which is another thing I could talk about. So, thank you, Bert. I don't know if it's okay with those people. We'll find out. So that I read their thing. So we'll find out. So remember, like the brainwashed normies and killer sleeper agents, all these child shooters. Remember that, like the brainwashed normies and all the killer sleeper agents they control, the Archons will speak in absolutes. They'll be like, they incite racism. All those people are that way, and stereotypes. They'll try to convince you to be into stereotypes. They'll try to convince you. They speak in your mind in absolutes and stereotypes that are all lies. Okay? I'm depressed. They're all like that. You always do that. I want to kill myself. I have to kill that person. I'm going to kill you. I have to punch them out even, or simply just, if you're a mild-mannered person, that you have to tell them off. You have to create negative energy. All psychological lies feed them loose. This is how you know. Okay? Now, everybody is naturally going to be angry or depressed or full of worry or fear. But what they do is, not necessarily full of it, but having those emotions. Okay? But what they do is they will try to amplify it like a signal in an amplifier. They're going to try to get into your thoughts when they're doing this technology that we don't understand. They're going to try to get into your thoughts through stress, addiction, loneliness, narcissistic personality disorder, or abuse in narcissistic relationships. Yet remember, always, all garbage thoughts, ultimatic violence, like either you do this or you're going to have to die or whatever, and fixed beliefs of the derogatory sort. You can hang on to a belief if it's respectful. You can fixate on an idea like, I have to respect But if you fix on a derogatory belief or a disrespectful idea, the guilt, the jealous God idea, this all stems from the Archons. The guilty, the condemning spirit. Okay? In a shamanic society, there's none of this garbage. There would be in the past, in the future, when there's shamanic societies based in mutual respect, or a Buddhist in Kathmandu, when they had that 9 or 7.9.0 earthquake, they had no sheriff's calls because they have no sheriffs. Because no one ever does any violent crimes, even though it's almost a million people live there. You know why? Because the vast majority of them were raised Buddhist. They don't want to harm anyone else. I need to visit that city to heal. So, all negative, limited identities, but for sure, they're gonna feed off. They're gonna try to convince you, if not, they haven't already, to some degree, of all negative or limited identities for yourself and others, but for sure, and separationist thoughts, but for sure, repeating streams of violence, repression, or nonsense, just shit thoughts. They'll even do that. Stupid fucking garbage, trash, crap thoughts. If you're totally unaware of your thoughts or your behavior, at a certain point they might actually beam in thoughts that are garbage and trash, because that's what kind of energy they want. And that's why you see, when politicians get angry, they get real incoherent. So, all those thoughts do not source from the real you, which was originally a ray of the Christ Sophia divine light that became your ego or identity and gradually became the hardened and the fearful and the violent, or whatever the problems you have that are your unaware thoughts are. So when these streams of bullshit inversions, especially the inversions, and exaggerations of your real sadness or anger come in loud and strong, because they will when you're feeling really emotional, ask yourself, is that my thought? Sometimes I'll tell the Archons to go kill yourself, because I'm not going to think this thought. I'm not thinking that. I know it's not me. You're a piece of shit. And that's the problem. The habit I have now, the shadow work, one of the shadow work pieces I'm going to have to work on currently, is I got in a habit of telling the Archons, you're a fucking idiot, piece of shit. And that's probably actually it's certainly bad for my physiology. It's not good for this body. It could be feeding my illnesses. So, I'm going to probably have to change that. But it certainly puts the thoughts of harming myself out of my head. I mean, but I'm not sure if it's an aware way. I'm experimenting with this. So, but, just having finished Robert Falconer's book, he's shown me a much healthier way to do it. So, if I can learn the discipline. But for me, admitting the IFS is harder for me. Admitting the reality of Dick Schwartz's concept of an eternal family in my head is actually harder for me than to admit the Archons, interestingly enough. So, to separate out the different voices, or to believe that that's a necessary part of my healing. It's an interesting philosophical point, but I wonder what the audience thinks. What do you think about that, guys? People? So, Robert Falconer has a superior way of getting rid of these voices using kindness to get them out. Having empathy and compassion for the Archons. Mind-boggling, when you consider what they are. It's the next step. If I haven't And I could see how it makes me sicker to get angry at them. If I've learned that enough times, I could transcend the need for that masochism. So, but like I say, lately I've been telling them all the time whenever they try to cause me harm, you are a very talented piece of psychic trash. I started to be more gentle with it like that. So I guess Falconer has inspired me to become already a little more gentle with it. Like, wow. Too bad you have to try to feed off me doing stupid shit. You're very talented for a piece of psychic garbage, but you're still just an idiot when it comes to respect. And you don't belong on this planet. So maybe it has been seeping in. Maybe that book did already seep into my relationship to these beings. Our ancient inner me, the Archons, could be considered insider trigger masters. If you're not a great meditationer or using have a really healthy relationship with cannabis, or a really powerfully clear-headed Gnostic thinker, these beings, one of those three from my perspective, if not more than one of those three, these beings could be considered the inner me master, trigger masters. And, they made me click on a button that signed me out of YouTube because I didn't have my mouse clicked in, and I was going to retrieve that One Love Supreme for the intro. And so I signed out of YouTube. Now, would I choose to sign out of YouTube? No, of course not. It was only due to my unawareness. Because, especially with online gadgets, they try to control all that. So if you don't pay very clear, explicit attention to what you're doing, bada boom, they're going to get you to do something stupid. If you have a trigger word or if you believe in some garbage dogma that can be triggered, they're going to do it. So they're experts. The Archons are experts at pissing you off and exaggerating all of those bad, lowering emotions because it is their food. So by knowing whose words you are thinking and making sure they are you and respectful, you win back your own mind, finally. And if you haven't already, click subscribe and hit the notification bell. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you thought about it if you like. And follow me on Odyssey or Rumble if you want to get more into the dark depths of mind control and torture that the human race has gone into that I can't speak about on YouTube. And of course, as always, if you have the courage to take back this and this, create a great one, my family. Loving you, folks.